Hi, Shalonda again with Town and Country Escrow. Just wanted to do a little escrow insight, about 10-15 minutes on manufactured homes. Um, manufactured home listing agreements. So first I'll just give some basic background information. Um, Manufactured home is actually considered personal property. It's not real property. You don't pay a withholding tax to the IRS. You don't pay a real estate withholding to the Franchise Tax Board for the state of California either. But there might be, depending on what local tax the mobile home is actually on, there could be two different types of tax that you would pay. The first would be if it's on a local property tax roll, and then there's that's called LPT, meaning that there's an annual tax assessment for that mobile home or manufactured home. Number two, it would be what's called an ILT, which is in lieu of tax. And basically with that, there's a registration fee that's actually paid to the Department of Housing and Community Development. And when you go to sell that manufactured home, there will be sales tax due on that transaction. And so there's a certificate of retail value that we actually request as an escrow holder from Housing and Community Development. We give them all the information, model number, serial number, HUD, insignia numbers, and then they use either the Kelly Blue Book value for the manufactured home or what's called NADA. They use that to try to give us some type of value for that manufactured home. And then upon the information they give us, then there's a tax that actually will be due to them when escrow closes. So I wanted to talk about that. I also wanted to talk about there's certain forms the real estate agents really should know. There's certain forms that are not required when there's a manufactured home, and one of them is the qualified substitute. Because there is no withholding that is actually due to the Franchise Tax Board or the IRS. We won't be doing any type of holding. It's personal property. When it's not attached to a permanent foundation, it's considered personal property. So that's the reason why that form is not required. Another form that's not required is the CalFRIPTA or the foreign affidavit is not required when it's a manufactured home that's not attached to real property. And the reason being is because it's personal property. Okay. And so the other thing I wanted to talk about, and I will give you samples of any forms that I'm actually referring to as I speak, at the end of the discussion. Number two, certificate of titles. Okay. There's, when you have a house, you have a grant deed. When you go to record the grant deed, it gets vested into the buyer's name. Okay. Manufactured homes that are registered under Housing Community Development has a form that's called a certificate of title. Now, with a grant deed, even though you might have a loan on your property, you still will get that original grant deed back, being the owner of that property. Well, with manufactured homes, it works a little bit differently. That certificate of title, if you purchase your home under a loan, that certificate of title will actually go to the lender as the legal owner, and they will hold on to that certificate of title until they're actually paid off, and then they will send in the certificate of title with a lien release to Housing Community Development, who will in return issue a new certificate of title with the owner's information on it and no legal owner information. So that's the difference between a grant deed and a certificate of title. Okay. So we have manufactured homes that are on leased land, which means it might be owned by an individual, or it might be in a park where they're subject to space fees, utility charges, monthly that are due to what's called a park association or mobile park or a homeowners association. Then you have property that might, manufactured homes that might sit on property that's actually owned by the seller. So that's different. But if it's not attached to a permanent foundation, it's not considered a single family residence. It's still a manufactured home. We still have, most homes now all manufactured homes should be on what's called a registration with the Housing Community Development Department. You might have some that are like really old that might not have been transferred over, that might have some type of registration with DMV. Not that many, because I believe in 1986 they actually start switching them over to Housing Community Development Department. And so what happens when you sell a manufactured home and there's a death? Maybe there's a joint tenancy, and one of the owners pass away. There might be where there might be just one person on title, and we need to transfer title to an heir. And so there has been some question as to who should be signing the purchase contract. The heir is okay to sign the purchase contract as the heir, along with giving us a copy of the death certificate, so that we could fill out the probate forms with the Department of Housing and Community Development. The heir should make sure that there's no one else that could claim ownership of that property, being its personal property. So there are some things questions that we would ask as an escrow holder to make sure that they are the sole heir. So there's a form that's called transfer without probate, where personal property works differently than a property that's a single family residence, that's actual real property. And with real property, if one of the owners die and there's a joint tenancy established, then that ownership would actually go over to the surviving person. And the surviving person would normally fill what's called an affidavit of death of joint tenant, along with a certified copy of a death certificate. Was send it in to the county recorder's office. And so then it'll be properly documented that now that person owns the property. When there is an individual, there's a difference, and there is a death, and there's no one else on title. When it's real property, single family residences, that property has to go through a process that's called probate, where there's a court order, a court action that confirms or authorizes the sale. There's an executive or administrator of the estate of that dead person who was chosen if there's not a will or trust that's available. With manufactured homes, it works a little bit differently because it's personal property. So if there is no trust that person is left behind, there's a document that we actually can complete. The heir would complete that document stating that they're where the person's deceased and that the property was gifted, over to them or left to them. And that document is called a certificate without probate. So there's no probate procedures at all. I've done actually plenty of transfers that way with manufactured homes. I also wanted to talk about the manufactured home listing agreement. It seems that CAR has gotten rid of this document. I don't think it's no longer available because they actually made an addendum and on June of this year. So if you're a listing agent and you're listing a piece of property, whether it's personal, whether it's a residential property or a manufactured home that's on leased land or on permanent foundation, you're still going to use the same form, the residential listing agreement. On that form, there's a box that you would check that would actually disclose whether or not if it's a manufactured home. There's information also on that form that you would put. You'd actually have to ask the seller to give you a copy of the certificate of title if they have it. If they have a loan, just know that they won't have that document. They'll have a registration card. On those two documents, there will be information that will identify the mobile home. There's serial number, there's a date of first purchase, the ownership information is on there, model number, the maker of that manufactured home. That's very important information that you need to place on that listing agreement. Also, what's very important that you place is the space number if it's located within a mobile park or it's on leased land. Very important information to have. So there's no mobile home listing agreement. Now you have the residential listing agreement that you'll use, and then you also, when there's a mobile home involved, I keep saying mobile home, when there's a manufactured home that's involved, you have to also use what's called the mobile manufactured home listing addendum. And on that, you would actually put the information as well to identify the manufactured home. These documents should go hand in hand when you're doing your listings. You also should do not a regular transfer disclosure statement, but there's actually a mobile home or manufactured home transfer disclosure statement that should be completed as well. Okay, so that's the information on manufactured homes. I didn't want to keep the information too lengthy. I just wanted to give you basic, quick information about manufactured homes. Manufactured homes do require a natural hazard disclosure statement, and it should be ordered. If there's an offer that's accepted, there might be a home warranty. There might be a termite report order, just depending on how that deal is structured. If there's a loan, hazard insurance is required. Some mobile parks will require what's called an inspection to make sure that that manufactured home is up to par. If there's missing smoke detectors, or the water heater not being strapped, or signs of some type of infestation. The mobile park might require those items be repaired before the actual unit can be sold. Mobile parks also require that the buyer of a manufactured home also is approved by them to be able to lease the land that the manufactured home is on. So there's a process that they have to do. So it's very important that if you do have a buyer that is buying a manufactured home, make sure that they are approved by the park association. A mobile park it's called Mobile Parks. That's actually the name. Make sure that they've gone through the process of being approved by the mobile park, because if not, it will create issues if they don't know if there's a transaction that's going on. If the seller leaves and doesn't pay the final utility bill, that bearing will fall on the buyer. So you want to make sure that you are lining up everything so that you have a smooth closing. I do handle manufactured homes on leased land, on land that's owned by sellers. I can do the land and the manufactured home. New installations of manufactured homes I can do as well. I can do homes that are being converted into single family residences with what's called a 433 install, once the permanent foundation bracing has been done. So that is the information I have for you. If you need information on who lends for manufactured homes, please reach out to me. I have a list of resources for you that's available. So I hope that this information is very informative. After this brief presentation, you will see a list of the forms. Actually, I will go through the forms so that you can see the residential listing agreement. You can see what a certificate of title looks like, a registration card. You can see what a tax bill might look like. Actually, I'm not going to include that in this session, but I will make sure that I get one up and posted real soon. But I wanted to keep that for a different topic when we talk about the different taxes that are due. So remember, very, very, very important that you always have your model numbers and your serial numbers, space numbers when you're listing manufactured homes. That information is very important. Manufactured homes are registered by Department of Housing and Community Development. And there's been instances where manufactured homes have been moved illegally to other spaces and in other parks, and HCD has not been notified of that transfer. So that property is kind of like it creates like a cloud on title, like when you have what's called real property transactions. So you want to make sure that your paperwork is always correct with HCD. You want to make sure that when your escrow closes, that if the seller had a lender, that they give you a conditional release or satisfaction that can be sent to the Housing and Community Development Department as well. You want to make sure that you get tax clearances from the county where that manufactured home is located, and that you present an original copy to Housing and Community Development. Riverside County, I believe, is yellow, and then up north you have white tax certificates. And then pink in certain counties, just depends. But you want to make sure that you always send in the original tax clearance for manufactured homes that are on what's called local property tax into HCD, so they have that information as far as the parcel number and so forth. And then you send a copy to the tax collector along with any check or amount that's due. So again, I hope the information is very informative to you. If you are involved in a manufactured home and it's your first time doing a manufactured home, please reach out to me. You can always reach me by phone at 951-808-3972 or by email, which is as Chappell, CHAPPEL at tcsgrowcorp.com. Once again, thank you, and stand by because there's more information to come. Okay, here we are now. Certificate of title. So we're going over the documents I discussed in the presentation. This is a certificate of title. Would be the grantee for a manufactured home. It would contain a decal number, which is identifying information, along with the manufacturer's information, trade name, model number. DOM stands for date of manufacture. DFS stands for date of first sale. Serial numbers would go here, insignia or HUD labels would go here. The weight, height would go here. Total fees that have been paid in connection with this certificate of title would be there. The address of mailing address for the owner would go there. Registered only information would go here again. Site address is the actual physical address of where the manufactured home is located. Down below here, this is actually cut off. There would be information regarding legal owner. If there's a loan on that property, we would see that information there. Okay, so that is that document. Next document I'm going to share with you will be a registration card. Okay, so this is a registration card. Has same information that would be on a certificate of title. It's a little blurry here, but the decal number would be here. The addressee's information, that would be the registered owner. Serial numbers, HUD label numbers, the height, length. Sometimes there's 2 sections, sometimes there's 3 sections. Total fees paid for the registration will be there, and the date it was issued. Registration was actually issued from the Department of Housing and Community Development would be there. Okay, so we'll stop with that and move on to our next document. Okay, so the next document would be the residential listing agreement. Okay, and so I mentioned previously in the presentation that there is no manufactured home listing agreement. You have to use the residential listing agreement. There's a section here where you would actually list if the property, if your listing is a manufactured or mobile home, and then there's an additional addendum for additional terms that you'd have to complete with this listing agreement that would list down certain information. So the listing price would go here, the terms. If it's part of a probate, conservatorship, or guardianship, that would go there. Next document. So this is the actual addendum that I was referring to. And this addendum is entitled Manufactured Home Listing Addendum. And the information on the registration card or the certificate of title, you ask the seller to see a copy, would go in section 2. You have to allocate a price towards, if there's a real property being sold, there has to be an amount allocated towards the land, and then amount allocated towards the manufactured home. You need to list whether or not if it's on a local property tax roll or on a local registration, which is in lieu of tax, which is a yearly registration with the Department of Housing and Community Development. Once again, information from the registration certificate of title would be entered here. Or if that property is a real property manufactured home and the building permit is obtained from local authorities and the manufactured home is affixed to a foundation, this is the format you should be using. And this actually should be checked because it's a real property manufactured home. You should not be using a residential listing agreement without this information on here. So we want to make sure we're doing everything decently in order. So make sure that you have that information filled out here. Okay. Next document that we have is the manufactured home purchase agreement. So you've accepted an offer. More than likely, this would be, as a listing agent or seller, this would be the offer that was presented to you. Again, you want to make sure that before you present this to escrow, that the information is actually completed accurate, that if there is real property involved that's owned by the seller as well, that you allocate an amount towards the manufactured home, you allocate an amount towards the land. Okay, very important. So this information, you want to make sure that you, if the manufactured home is on lease or rented land, that you put the park's name, space number, the address, and information here. If it is to be sold real property, that information will go here. And if it's just a real property manufactured home, that information will go here. Okay. Again, F, additional description. You'll find information on a certificate of title or a registration. Remember, a lot of agents get confused with closing dates and want to know what exactly triggers the close of escrow. Your date here is your closing date, and also it's contingent upon when the buyer's lender has actually funded that loan into escrow. There's no title company involved, so those funds come directly to the escrow holder, and if the buyer's funds are in. So check with your escrow officer periodically, because this date could change if the other components of your transaction have not been completed, such as a loan approval, loan documents, park approval. Buyers have to get park approval in order to purchase a manufactured home. You want to make sure that you do everything, again, decently in order. So you want to make sure that you complete that information. If there's a home warranty that's being offered, that information should be on here. Natural hazard disclosure statements are a requirement, whether it's personal property or real property. So you want to make sure that you provide one. Retrofitting requirements, water heater and smoke detectors are required. Department of Housing Community Development would like on the forms for HCD, which we'll go over later, they want to know if that information has been, if actually devices have been installed. Okay, so very important that you have checked also whoever's paying the county transfer tax. When it's a manufactured home, there's an annual local property tax, so we want to know who's paying that tax. If there's estimated taxes, we know that those go to the buyer. Buyer will pay that. There'll be park association fees as well. There could be a home warranty depending on the contract again. So this is all information that we want to make sure that you have. Last document I have is a manufactured home. Actually, this is not the last document. We have one more document after this. This is a transfer disclosure statement. So with real property, as you know, there should be a transfer disclosure statement that follows it. This is a manufactured home transfer disclosure statement. You want to make sure that your seller discloses the information that has been provided, and the buyer's been provided a copy of this as part of their contingency period of reviewing documents. Okay, so we'll go to my last document. And this document is called a certificate without probate. Okay, so you have a seller that passed away and you have a joint tenancy. This form needs to be completed by the surviving person and sent in to HCD. If there is an heir, the property was left to a family member, this form would need to be completed by that family member along with a copy of their death certificate, so that they'll know how to properly transfer title over, and that they have documentation that the person they have on title with the Department of Housing Community Development has passed away. So again, works a little bit differently with real property. If there's a sale that's taking place and there's no joint tenancy established with real property, then the property should go through probate, where they are establishing an executor or administrator of the estate, and then that you can confirmation of sale from the probate court or court order to sell that property for the price that was actually listed. So this document with Housing Community Development, very easy document to complete. Once again, when it's personal property, there is no probate that's required. For manufactured home, this document would just need to be completed by heirs. Sometimes there might be more than one heir, so whoever the heirs are would need to complete this document. Okay, so I hope all this information has been helpful. Thank you.